Good afternoon to everyone who is joining us just now. We will make a start in a couple of moments' time when we have more participants join. Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to make a start in just a minute or two's time. We're just waiting for some more participants to join us. Okay, we've got a good number of participants who have joined us this afternoon. Thank you to all of those of you who have joined this afternoon and look forward to having a really good session with you all. Welcome to the Offshore Wind Growth Partnership National Fit For Programme briefing. My name's Lynn McIntosh-Grieve and I'm a Programme Manager for OWGP and responsible for our business transformation programmes. As many of you will probably already know, but for those of you who aren't, the Offshore Wind Growth Partnership is an organisation that was set up to support the delivery of the offshore wind sector deal. And we work very much aligned to the requirements of the offshore wind sector, and we look to support the growth of the supply chain in the sector. Our activities are funded by the Offshore Wind Industry Council and delivered by ORE Catapult. So today, I'd like to take you through a little bit of an introduction on OWGP and the types of activities that we are conducting and have been conducting to date. I'm then going to pass you over to my esteemed colleague, Johnny Love from ORE Catapult, who is our lead partner in the Fit For Offshore Renewables programme. Johnny will take us through an overview of the programme and what can be expected for applicants and selected applicants who will be successful on the programme. And I'll then take us back through the expression of interest process, including eligibility requirements, the application process itself, some key dates to be aware of, and also the submission. I'll then also talk a little bit about the other opportunities that OWGP have live, as well as some which are going to be coming up in the coming months. We do have a Q&A and we would encourage you, if you do have any questions, to put them into the Q&A within the webinar. We are recording this session, so please be aware of that. And we will make this recording as well as the slides available to all of those who have attended and perhaps those who weren't able to attend after today's session on the OWGP website. So without further ado, I'm just going to provide a little bit of an introduction and overview of OWGP. As I mentioned at the top of the presentation, the OWGP is a long-term business transformation programme in order to support the growth of the UK supply chain in offshore wind. We have a number of key performance indicators which we're measured against, which include increasing jobs, increasing exports, increasing turnover of UK companies, and increasing intellectual property of those companies, specifically towards offshore wind. As I mentioned previously, our funding is provided by the Offshore Wind Industry Council, which is made up of the developers and OEMs who work off the shores of the UK on UK offshore wind projects. And we have and we will continue to leverage regional and national funding in order to increase our ability to support the supply chain. The programme itself has a budget of £100 million over 10 years up to 2030 in order to provide companies with grant funding and business transformation programmes. On the grant funding side of things, my colleague Claire Canning is leading the grant funding side alongside Tom Speedy, who works ably beside her, developing and delivering two different styles of grant funding opportunities. We have development grants, which are the larger of the two opportunities, providing grants of £100,000 to £1 million to companies to invest in large-scale and transformational projects to work in offshore wind. We also have innovation grants, and they are slightly smaller, providing companies £25,000 to £100,000 in order to invest in smaller scale and game-changing innovation projects. So far, across grant funding, we've awarded 42 different projects, with some of the names on the screen there that you can see being supported over the last 2 years. In business transformation, this is the area that I lead on and work alongside Matt Brown. We have the West programme, which I'll tell you a little bit more about later on, as well as the Sharing and Growth programme. And we've supported 74 companies on the West programme and 8 companies through Sharing and Growth. And I'm delighted to say that we are introducing the Fit For programme into the suite of business transformation opportunities for companies to ensure that we cover all different shapes and sizes of company across the supply chain in offshore wind. So now I'd like to hand over to Johnny Love, a programme manager from the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult, in order to provide us with an overview of the Fit For national programme. Johnny.
Thanks so much, Lynn, and good afternoon, everybody. Fantastic to see so many people joining the webinar today. I hope that following this, many of you will be interested in submitting an expression of interest, and then I look forward to working with the team to assess the applications that we receive and hopefully welcome a few of you onto the National Fit For programme. Yeah, fantastic to be working with OWGP to deliver this Fit For Offshore Renewables programme, the first of which is being rolled out across the UK with no geographic restrictions. Previously, we have worked on rolling the programme out regionally, and I've had the privilege of working with a number of organisations on a couple of the different programmes. Firstly, the programme in New Anglia, which is coming to a conclusion, and also the TIGOR programme, also funded through the OWGP, which focuses on companies in the northeast of England, which is just starting to see its first companies getting ready to be awarded Fit For granted status. But what does that all mean? Lynn's invited me to give an overview today and hopefully achieve the objective of providing you with some high-level information about the programme. So Fit For itself has been developed from the established, as you can see there, Fit For Nuclear programme, of course, from the nuclear industry, and we partnered with the Nuclear Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre, NAMRC, to develop a similar programme but specific to the offshore renewables industry. We've taken the lead on adjusting the programme since it was conceived to align to the offshore renewables supply chain characteristics and the business content and the opportunity that presents. And of course, with recent announcements on the prevalence of floating offshore wind opportunities following the recent Scotland announcements and the direction the industry is heading, we are continuing to update, refresh and evolve the content of the programme to make sure it remains relevant, and that covers things like fabrication and manufacturing, assembly, service, O&M, all of the items that you can see there in blue and in bold. Indeed, we've worked together with Nuclear MRC and our delivery partners, OWGP Limited, to enhance the sector-specific modules to focus specifically for this programme on offshore wind, with it being, of course, OWGP funded programme. The programme content has been developed directly with insight and feedback from our industrial advisory group, our IAG, who are made up of some of the most recognisable names and brands within the offshore wind industry, as you can see on the right hand side there. It's an iterative process and is continually under review, and we look to update and refresh that content, as I mentioned just a moment ago. Lily, if you skip to the next slide, please. Thank you. So what is Fit for all about? Well, the aim of the programme is, as you can see, to increase the competence, capacity and competitiveness, the 3 Cs, as we call them, of the UK offshore renewable energy supply chain, maximising opportunity for the UK supply chain, both domestically and globally. So you can see how it's certainly aligned with the aims of the OWGP with regards to maximising the opportunity, supporting UK content, and hopefully exporting that knowledge and IP as well. And to do this, we identify high potential supply chain organisations who, of course, have a strategic interest in the offshore wind industry. We address barriers to entry for these companies and increase, hopefully, UK content by providing sector-specific support, which is underpinned by core business excellence capability. And through that, we help businesses build capability and, of course, know how to apply it to win business and support continuous improvement. Thanks, Lynn. But what does that look like typically? How are all those aims achieved? Well, the Fit for programme is a 12 to 18-month journey, typically. Some companies can do it more quickly, others need a little bit more time. It all depends on how much you're assessed in terms of having to do to achieve the Fit for standard, Fit for granted level. And we provide interactive support and coaching across 2 strands to do this. Strand 1, as I mentioned a moment ago, is all to do with that core business excellence. It's all about assessing and improving on business management systems and practices. And then on that foundation, strand 2 is overlaid. So that's all about specific offshore wind excellence, knowledge and experience. So from that foundation of core business excellence, the sector specific is laid on top. Any gaps are noted, and the action improvement plans are developed with yourselves and put into place. And essentially then you're asked to go and fill in those gaps, put in place the strategy or the processes, improving areas of people or health and safety to address the gaps that are noted on your action improvement plans. That's supported through one-to-one advice and opportunity to attend sector-specific surgeries, normally as a group of companies on the journey together, a cohort. This is all supplied to help support you in your progress. We don't set you a task and leave you alone to get on with it. The drive, of course, must come from within your own organisation. We're very much supportive rather than doing the actual improvement work for you. And along the way, you record your evidence and track your progress against your improvement plans. And there will come a point, hopefully, where enough progress has been made for you to be assessed again and achieve that Fit for granted status. Next slide, please, Lynn. So I mentioned the 2 strands. I appreciate the text on this slide is a little small, so I'll forgive you if you can't quite see all of the details there. But essentially on the left-hand side is the business excellence categories, and on the right-hand side there are the sector-specific areas of assessment as well. The colour coding system effectively looks to define what is within each sector. So the purple is drivers of strategic success. The golden colour is key sector competence. So you'll see that's only on the sector-specific strand of the programme. Blues are drivers of competitiveness, and then that grey section is basic competence. So you can see there's quite a spread, but you can also see how it really gets into the under the skin of the business and helps improve things from the core outwards. So on the business excellence side of things, the 6 categories are people, strategy and leadership, process and operations, design and project delivery, health, safety and environment, and of course quality. So you can see how those form the core business excellence sections. And then on top of that, on phase 2 is overlaid the sector specific areas. Firstly, sector knowledge. As Lynn mentioned previously, we're certainly welcoming companies from out of the sector to join the programme, and we appreciate that a deep sector knowledge may be something that needs to be developed to compete with completely the supply chain in the offshore wind sector. Cost reduction and competitiveness is the next one, and then key sector competence factors including capacity and capability, sector specific health, safety and environment, which has its own sort of specific set of subset of rules and language, can even trip up organisations who are very used to working offshore already, perhaps in oil and gas, for example. Technical risk management, and finally commercial risk management. So quite a comprehensive scope. Thanks, Lynn. And the journey itself, it doesn't all happen all at once, as you might expect. And as you can see from the note at the bottom there, this is typically a 12 to 18 month programme. So it requires a fairly moderate term commitment from your organisation and from us to you as well. So over on the left-hand side, you can see the stage where we're essentially at the moment. It's all about participant expressions of interest, and if successful, being invited to fill out a capability questionnaire. There's a gate assessment for your company at that point. We can only, of course, accept a limited number of companies onto the programme, but those who do make it through will go through to a self-assessment, online self-assessment process where the business excellence and sector-specific criteria are self-assessed. Following that, and now on the third step of the journey, we verify the business excellence and sector-specific scores. So we send in our expert industrial advisors to meet with you, either on site or virtually, depending on the circumstances at the time. We've been successfully delivering the programme in this virtual world throughout the pandemic, with site visits only made possible just more recently. And so this verification step is very important in terms of possibly giving you a reality check as to where you actually are in the opinion of our expert advisors versus where you think you are as an organisation. And that can be slightly iterative as well, if there is a big discrepancy between the two scores. But once the score has been settled on, you move up to the next step, which is developing the improvement plan, and then going and executing that. This is the longest step on the journey, which this little ladder is, of course, not to scale, and companies spend many months addressing the actions and improvement suggestions within that plan at this stage. And once the progress has been made, in the opinion of our assessors, we move you to a pre-granting verification stage. So you'll have a final sit down with your advisor, look at where you were, where you've been on the journey, and where you're at now as an organisation, ahead of us taking that company information and presenting it to our independent granting panel. So the independent granting panel is made up of representatives from the nuclear AMRC, colleagues at ORE Catapult, and our industrial advisory group as well. And they're a higher level of governance to ensure that the process has been carried out correctly and fairly across the organisation, and giving that quality assurance to the Fit for granted status. And then, of course, on successful verification, I'm just going to move my picture of myself out the way so I can see what's underneath that side of the screen. In terms of the benefits of being granted Fit for status, Getting to know our IAG along the way, of course, is a strategic supply chain opportunity. Having the likes of GE, Ørsted, Siemens Gamesa, Renewable Energy aware of your company as being assessed to be at the standard required for Fit For is obviously an excellent advantage. Though, of course, many of you won't be dealing directly with those companies, but certainly this information percolates through their supply chains as the type of contractor that these OEMs and developers and operators would like to be doing business with. You get added to our Fit For database. So this is a growing database. We're anticipating to be growing to approximately 100 organizations before the conclusion of this program, where your capabilities and your experience will be outlined, making you easily accessible for the contractors issuing contracts to you in the supply chain. There are, of course, industrial engagement opportunities. We do pitch your companies and your capabilities to our IAG on a regular frequency to ensure that you are at the forefront of their minds and in contention and aligned with their supply chain opportunities. And indeed, we have Fit For granted events, so specifically for companies who have achieved this status. These vary depending on the opportunities present and the companies granted at the time. But essentially, this is a bit of an exclusive club for Fit For granted companies to further get benefit from the program. Thanks, Lynn. And lastly, just to comment on what you can expect out of the Fit For program, from the opinion of Fit For granted companies. So there's a couple of examples from companies who have gone through the program and been awarded the status and are seeing some of the results just there. But essentially, Fit For granted companies are at the moment part of a cohort of 75, which we expect to grow thanks to this program and more that we're planning on rolling out in due course. They'll typically improve their business excellence scores by 14% and their sector-specific scores by 24% as well. I appreciate that won't mean too much to you, but what I hope it does demonstrate is that companies extract value from the program on both the business excellence and the sector-specific sides. They come in at a level and they leave the program 12 or 18 months later with improved core processes or people excellence, improved health and safety, sector knowledge, improved commercial risk management, technical risk management. There's benefit to glean from being on the program.
Great, I think we may have just lost Johnny temporarily. As you can see on the screen, some really fantastic accounts of what companies have had to say about the programme, and really, you know, companies that hopefully some of you will recognise as well, Balmoral and 2H Offshore, who have both been granted the Fit For status in recent years.
Lynn, apologies, I think I cut out then for a moment.
Don't worry.
I'm back in the room, although I only had about 30 more seconds to share, so thanks for picking up the reins in the meantime. You might have covered them off whilst I went dark, but Fit For companies are tendering for and winning work in the offshore renewables sector, which is fantastic. And to, well, plug the gap that extra work needs, they are creating jobs and recruiting for positions as well. So companies are improving and growing by being part of the Fit For program, which is an excellent result for all those all round, I believe. I think, Lynn, that was my last slide. Apologies for the technical issue just then. I hope that's given a good introduction and overview, but of course, happy to answer questions later on if people have any. Thanks.
Perfect, thank you, Johnny. And yeah, just a reminder for everyone who's on the call today, please do use the Q&A function to ask any questions that you might have of myself or Johnny on anything that we're presenting today. It allows us to follow up with those at the end of the session, or we can follow up directly with you as well. So please do use that going forward. Okay, so I'm going to pick up from where Johnny took us to there and take you through the application process. So the Fit For programme application process, as Johnny already said, We're wanting to help UK companies to measure their current operations against the standards that are required in order for them to supply into the offshore wind sector. Now, we are looking to attract companies not just already in the offshore wind sector, but those who perhaps are in other sectors that may be complementary or that have specific skills and engineering expertise that would potentially be able to be transferred into the offshore wind space. So you can see some examples there, perhaps companies that are already working in agriculture, perhaps oil and gas, nuclear, space or aerospace, or any other areas where maybe companies are working cross-sectorally, but who cover manufacturing, fabrication, assembly, service, as well as design and engineering. In terms of eligibility, it's really important that we have high quality applicants coming forward and applying to our programmes. And therefore we do have a number of eligibility criteria. So first off, we are looking for companies who are registered in the UK and have a turnover of over £1 million and a headcount of over 10 employees. That's to ensure that the companies have the appropriate bandwidth to be able to absorb the support and absorb the nature of the programme, which requires a commensurate amount of resource from each individual organisation. As I mentioned in the previous slide, applicant companies should have competence or expertise in one or more of the following areas, so manufacturing, assembly, fabrication, service or engineering. We also require applicants to have evidence as part of their application that they have a desire to work and or grow into the offshore wind sector. It's also very, very important that there is senior leadership and senior management buy-in to any application made, as there will be a requirement for each company to apply resource to gain the granted status and to progress through the programme. So that's really crucial that companies appreciate that it's not just something that's done to you, it's something that you have to actively participate in. We're looking for companies who are or have ISO 9001 accreditation or who are working actively towards achieving that. Developing a business, actively pursuing and developing business in offshore wind is another area of prominence. And I think one of the things that Johnny mentioned already in his part of the presentation, but really this is an improvement programme. This is a programme of change, and therefore it's very, very important for companies to be open-minded and to be able to take on constructive feedback about potential deficiencies or business needs identified by our expert partners. That enables that improvement within the business and also ensures that you get the most out of the programme. The application process itself can be broken down into sort of 4 steps. The first step is making the expression of interest application, and I'll take you through where to find that in just a minute or two. That's an online form and it can be found on our OWGP webpage, but I'll give you the exact link in the next slide. Once you have submitted your application and the application window has been closed, what we will do is there will be a long list of applicants reviewed, and a long list will be then provided a capability questionnaire and business excellence self-assessment. That's to ensure that eligibility requirements are met, first of all, before providing companies that have been selected for the long list into the capability questionnaire and business excellence self-assessment. That is an online application, and I'll give you the key dates associated with that for the companies who may progress to that stage. Once the capability questionnaires and business excellence self-assessment have been provided and reviewed, then there will be a number of companies who will be offered support. Initially, there will be an invitation to join the programme by email, and we may follow up with discussions using digital means such as MS Teams or phone. We would then look to confirm those companies onto the programme who had been successful by providing them with a support offer letter detailing the terms and conditions associated with the programme. So where to find this information, where to find the expression of interest application form. If you go to our OWGP website and go to opportunities, the opportunities tab at the top, there is a business transformation programmes page. And halfway down on the right hand side is where you'll find all of the information pertaining to the Fit for Offshore Renewables programme. We firmly recommend that you download the scope and guidance document which has been prepared in order to provide further insight that we're maybe not able to cover today in our session as part of the webinar, but gives further detail on what is required as part of your application. We are using an online form for the expression of interest application, and once we put these documents on our website, you'll be able to click through all the links, but equally you'll be able to find them on the page at the top of the screen. Questions that are provided are a blend of text boxes and numerical responses, and there is guidance within the form which asks you specifically what to provide, or specifics of what we would like you to provide in each of those questions. Please read the questions carefully before you make your submission. Please note that you won't be able to save and return to your application form while you're filling it out. So we therefore strongly recommend that you answer all the questions maybe separately in another document and then paste those in. You will need to liaise with other people within your organisation in order perhaps to gather some of that information. So therefore it's better that you do it offline before transferring online. And we do recommend that you keep a note of all the responses that you have provided, although you will be provided an auto response acknowledging receipt of your application. Oh, sorry, I don't know what happened there. Okay, so key dates then, things that you should be aware of. We've very quickly went through 1 and 2. So the EOI application process opens on the 19th of January, and today is the online briefing event. So we've covered those two off quite quickly already. The application closure for the expressions of interest is Friday, the 11th of February at 5 o'clock. Applications received after that time will not be reviewed. Long list applicants, as I mentioned earlier on, will be notified by the following Friday, the 18th of February, as to whether they will be progressing to receive the competence questionnaire and business excellence self-assessment. That will then be sent on to companies who have been down selected into the long list, and all companies will need to respond to the competence questionnaire and business excellence self-assessment by the 4th of March. We will be providing final feedback to companies who go through this process and be notifying successful applicants by the 11th of March. Okay. All of these dates can be found in the scope and guidance document, which I noted in the last slide, and will direct you to after today's session as well. So a couple of things just to for everyone to be aware of. First and foremost, if you haven't done so already, if you could please register on the OWGP website. That's owgp.org.uk/register interest. That just ensures that OWGP is aware of your intent to apply, as well as just we can keep in touch with you about future opportunities as well. Second is to draft your responses to the application questions and submit those. That is within the Fit for Scope and Guidance document, and again, all these links are active and you'll be able to click on those once we provide the slides after today's session on the website. Use those, the questions and your prepared answers to copy and paste those into the online application form and submit. And as I mentioned, you will receive an email acknowledgement to confirm that your application has been received. Okay, so hopefully that's all very clear. And we look forward to receiving applications from many of you. However, there are a number of other programmes that we do have within OWGP that may be of interest to some of you, or if you're unsuccessful with the Fit4 programme, perhaps you may consider some of the other programme opportunities that we have available. So I'd like to take you through those for just a moment or two to ensure that you have a broad knowledge of everything that we have to offer. So you can see there on the left-hand side that the Fit4 Offshore Renewables programme sits right in the intermediate space of the Business Transformation Suite of programmes. We also have a foundation level support called WEST, which stands for Wind Expert Support Toolkit, and an advanced or high intensity engagement activity called the Sharing and Growth Offshore Wind programme. And I'm just going to briefly take you through both of those before we talk a little bit about grant funding opportunities in the future. So the WEST programme, the Wind Expert Support Toolkit, is a low intensity intervention activity which provides companies with insight, market intelligence, and understanding of the offshore wind sector and how they might fit within the sector. It's a short-term activity. It lasts only a couple of months in duration, but provides companies with valuable insight into whether they might fit in the sector, or strategic insight if the company is already active in the sector and needing a little bit of extra help. It starts off with an assessment of a company's needs, and then provision of bespoke and targeted market intelligence, advice and support, and also some recommendations for next steps. We work with companies of all different shapes and sizes in the WEST programme. So from startup companies right the way through to companies who are very, very well established in other sectors, but who don't maybe have that much experience in offshore winds and are looking to understand how they might fit. And even companies who are already working extensively in offshore wind, but who are looking for that strategic insight and an opportunity to grow their presence. Again, most of our applications are online. You can find further information about the WEST programme on our Business Transformation Programmes page on the left-hand side at the top. Again, we have a scope and guidance document, as we have for all of our programmes, which provides further insight into what you could expect from that programme. We are using Microsoft Forms for this application. So again, same rules apply as they do for the Fit4 programme. Please make sure that you prepare your answers in advance, as you won't be able to save your answers as you go along. And you will have the opportunity at the end to save a PDF copy of your responses for WEST. I just thought it'd be useful to reflect on one of the participant companies from our WEST programme last year. This is a company called Marex, who are based in Aberdeenshire. They had previously no experience in the offshore wind sector, and after working working on the WEST programme, they had managed to secure contracts in the offshore wind sector, which they claim wouldn't have happened so quickly without the engagement they had on WEST. So really delighted to see that the programme is having impact in companies and really helping companies to grow their confidence and their understanding of where they can fit and how to engage. The other programme I mentioned was the Sharing and Growth Offshore Wind programme, otherwise known as SIG. The Sharing and Growth programme is a high intensity support programme, and it's aimed at very ambitious offshore wind companies who want to compete not just nationally but internationally, and willing to commit to a bespoke and integrated programme to develop their leadership culture or competitive operational capability. The difference between the Fit4 programme and the Sharing and Growth programme is that the Sharing and Growth programme is of a larger nature, and actually the support is embedded within each of the organisations. There is also a requirement for the companies to be already embedded in the offshore wind sector and to be of a larger size than typically all Fit4. So specifically, we're looking for companies with a site turnover of £5 to £100 million who are already active in the offshore wind sector and who have that senior leadership buy-in to improvement and growth. Typically of a headcount of more than 45 staff. Again, that's such that the company can absorb the support provided, and such that the sharing and growth team can work alongside and shoulder to shoulder with the company participating. The application process is online on the business transformation page, and it is a PDF form, so it's a downloadable form which you fill out and then submit to info@owgp.org.uk. The applications are open on an ongoing and rolling basis, so if you are interested in this, please do reach out to us and we can provide further details. Likewise, for the West programme, that's open on an ongoing rolling basis as well, so applications are open for both of those opportunities. We have a company here, Pangeo Subsea, who came on to the SIG programme last year. They've been working on a specific value stream activity with the sharing and growth team, and have shared their thoughts with us on their engagement so far. I can only apologise, the screen keeps jumping. They say that it has improved their customer satisfaction in engaging in the programme, improved their business performance and created clarity around their loading capacity, enabling them to engage more readily with customers and get work out the door more effectively than they had. So really fantastic programmes. Alongside the Fit For programme, a full complement of business transformation programmes available to UK supply chain companies who either want to accelerate their growth in offshore wind or who want to enter into the sector. A couple of future opportunities with OWGP before we round off with some Q&A. First of all, good to see where we've came from. So in 2021-22, we've had a number of programmes and grant funded applications available. We had 2 rounds of development grants totalling £7 million, and also innovation grants which closed at the back end of last year. Fortunately, we do have obviously West, sharing and growth and Fit For available for applications immediately. But going forward on development grants and innovation grants, there will be opportunities for companies to bid in for funding. Indicatively, we expect there to be a May 2022 funding round in development grants. The budget is yet to be confirmed for that by our OWGP board. And we also hope to have innovation grants indicatively launched in November, so later this year. For development grants, as I mentioned at the top of the presentation, those are grants of £100,000 to £1 million, which are match funded by participant organisations. Typically, the scope is open and allows companies to bid in with a transformational project activity in any area that is pertinent to the offshore wind sector. We usually have a 2-stage application for that, which starts off with an expression of interest application, much like the Fit For application, followed by a business plan as stage 2 for successful companies for stage 1. On innovation grants, those are smaller grants of £25,000 to £100,000, which again have match funding requirements attached. Those will be targeted to scope which will align with industry priorities and also UK opportunities for growth in the supply chain. The scope of which has yet to be defined and the budget of which is yet to be defined as well by our board. So my advice would be to register with OWGP to find out as soon as we have any new funding opportunities released, such that you're the first to hear about them. You can find out more by going to our website and clicking on the I'm interested button at the top right hand side, big yellow button. That will allow you to register for OWGP. But if you go to the opportunities tab and click on business transformation, that's exactly where you'll find the application for Fit For. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I'm going to open up the Q&A for those of you who may have asked any questions. I believe quite a few people put it in the chat perhaps, but let's go to the Q&A first and have a look at that. Okay. Okay, so we have a first question which says that they've been holding off of EOI for additional regional programmes in other regions? Due to rumours of this programme, do you recommend I aim for this programme over future regional programmes? I suppose it depends, I think it depends on where you're located, and if there might be rumours of there being other regional programmes. I don't have any insight into that, but this is a national opportunity, so it will be across Scotland, England, Northern Ireland and Wales. If you feel like you have a compelling application, please do submit one. And the Fit4 team would certainly be in a position to advise you if there might be future application opportunities available in your region as well. Would that be right, Johnny? I think you're on mute just now. There
we go. The mute button was quite sticky then. Yeah, thanks for the question, Rich. I would echo Lynn's comments there. The Fit4 programme is growing in terms of the demand for the programme and the numbers of companies interested. So both demand from supply chain side, but also local authorities and supply chain organisations looking to support their local businesses in terms of exploiting the offshore renewables opportunity. So we're really excited to be working with OWGP on this national opportunity. There have been a number of regional programmes, as I referenced, where companies have been a stone's throw from the local authority boundary and haven't been able to apply because of their postcode. So this one does present a really good opportunity, and also means that you're not restricted in terms of through which branch or office you apply to the programme from. So I would encourage you to submit an EOI if it's of interest. We have been funded through local authorities before to run the programme. It takes longer and is normally a little bit more of a delicate process to achieving funding. OWGP have been a lot more direct and able to allow us to open up to the whole country, which is fantastic. So I would sum it up by saying you miss, don't you, 100% of the shots you don't take. So get an EOI in, Rich, and we can go from there, because that form provides us with a lot more information to provide better answers. I hope that helps.
Perfect. Thanks, Johnny. Thanks for expanding on that. And we've got quite a few questions coming in now, which is fab. So hopefully we'll get through them all, or as many as we possibly can. But if we don't get to your question, or we don't get to answer your question today, we will take them away and respond maybe with a kind of FAQs. So we have a question from Neil. Thank you for your question, Neil. Having already attained Fit for Nuclear, how much of this work is a repeat of that in Fit for? So I suspect that the business excellence aspects will have similarities, albeit that they won't be entirely the same, because there are different requirements from each sector. But certainly I believe that the sector-specific information will be specific to offshore wind and therefore won't have been covered in the Fit for Nuclear programme. So Johnny, I don't know if you want to expand.
Exactly, Lynn. Yeah, yeah, Neil, thanks for the question. I responded in the chat actually, but I'll expand on this a little more. We have quite a number of companies actually that have successfully completed or are embarking on both programs, and there's definitely alignment there, because the business excellence strand of the program shares the very same DNA. So there's a small amount of overlap in that. To get onboarded to the Fit4 programme, you will have to enter your current business excellence scores and complete the questionnaire that you may already be familiar with. But because the spirit of the programme is one of continual improvement, you shouldn't necessarily be going over old ground on your business excellence journey unless you've backslid through not keeping up to speed with some of your Fit for Nuclear activities. So you shouldn't have to repeat any activity in that sense. But I would finish by saying any work that you do on the business excellence side of things would count towards both Fit for Nuclear and Fit for Offshore renewables. So you get a little bit more bang for your buck there. The sector-specific strand of the programme is, of course, entirely bespoke to the offshore renewables opportunity. And one slight difference from Fit for Nuclear in that regard is with Fit for Nuclear, you complete essentially business excellence first, and then you do your sector specific capability improvements. On Fit for Offshore Renewables, because we like to try and push things through a bit more quickly, the two journeys run not quite in parallel, but with a slight overlap. So organisations would be expecting to work on their business excellence improvements and at the same time improving their sector specific knowledge as well.
Thanks, Johnny. Okay, we've got a couple more questions and keep them coming in. I just realised, apologies, Johnny, that you'd responded to a few in the chat, which is great, but I just want to make sure that I'm not asking duplicates. So I think, Stephen, you've given us a bit of background on your organisation and where you currently fit within the tiers of the supply chain. So great that you already know that and are engaged. And you asked, would we be involved in this programme or just demonstrating our compliance to the tier 1 contractors? I think that I think Johnny maybe can expand upon this, but there are instances where companies were already winning work in offshore wind and who wanted to ensure that they were ticking all the boxes and could be as efficient and effective as they could be for their potential customers, and therefore use the Fit for programme to help them to do that, and as a structured methodology in order to help them to prove to their customer base that they are indeed meeting all of the criteria and some. So I hope that somewhat answers your question. Johnny, I don't know if you wanted to maybe expand.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. Stephen, we have a number of organisations currently on the programme who would probably relate to your question, your statement there. They've shared it publicly, so I'm not breaching anyone's trust by saying that Smulders and North Star Renewables are a couple of examples that spring to mind who are currently taking part on the programme. And my understanding from them is that they're certainly getting benefit from the programme as well. So it's more than a rubber stamping exercise for them, although indeed they obviously do have strong track records and good contracts on the books at the moment for the sector. So the programme is very broad. It can be that rubber stamping exercise if you view it as that. It could also be a springboard for companies coming into the industry or wanting to seize the opportunity. So you can make it what you would like to make out of it, would be the summary. But again, an expression of interest tells us a lot more than can be said in a few lines, and we're happy within reason to continue the conversation post an expression of interest as well.
Thank you, Johnny. Question from Clive: we've applied for WES, can we also apply to Fit for? Yes, Clive, assuming that your company does meet the eligibility criteria associated with the Fit for programme, we would absolutely encourage an application. Applying to the Fit for programme doesn't preclude you from support from other aspects of OWGP, but what we would expect is that any company who does receive support through any of our other mechanisms takes the time to be able to absorb that support and utilise that support to best effect. So yes, feel free to make an application, but we would just caution that multiple and serial applications all at the same time probably wouldn't be beneficial to your own organisation, because you do need to have the bandwidth to be able to support each engagement fully. Okay, the next question we've got here, so from Paul, I see is following Scotland announcement last week, what opportunities will the Fit for supported firms have to engage with the successful developers? So I'm going to partially answer some of this, and maybe Johnny can answer some of this. So I think, first of all, Paul, the first thing to highlight is that the OWGP programme activities are funded by the Offshore Wind Industry Council, and a number of the members of the Offshore Wind Industry Council are and have been successful bidders to ScotWind. Now, it's probably worth just highlighting that the ScotWind activities are probably not likely to be getting going for a number of years. So there won't be an immediate requirement from a ScotWind perspective. However, I think that the Industrial Advisory Group are also a collection of companies who are very plugged into the ScotWind leasing rounds and other opportunities such as Celtic Wind and so on. So I think that there would be opportunities for you to gain exposure. In-person introductions isn't something that we typically do as OWGP, but you would have exposure through the fact that you would be engaged in the programme. Johnny, I don't know if there's anything you'd want to add further.
Maybe one or two smaller points, Lynn, but yeah, the crux of it is we're engaged with industry throughout, thanks to the IAG. And I appreciate there are a number of logos on the slide that I shared earlier. I've just pulled it up on my other screen now, but SSE, Scottish Power Renewables, Ørsted as part of the Blue Float, one of the Blue Float consortiums, obviously involved in ScotWind, and also a note for EMBW, who joined our IAG shortly after being awarded a license for the development of the Mona and Morgan wind farms on the west coast of England in partnership with BP. So we have developers joining the IAG, I wouldn't say all the time, but on a kind of continuous basis. And we welcome them into the fold. And we're looking to adapt the offering to meet the supply chain opportunity. In terms of engaging with these developers on completion of your Fit For journey, presuming you get to go into status, I mentioned being presented to the IAG. We also offer what we call pitch days, which where a select few IAG members are available to be pitched to, not quite apprentice style, but they will let us know that we're looking for companies with X capability, and we can send along a number from our selected granted companies to those. And indeed, throughout the journey on Fit For, we hold what we call cohort days or cohort events, where we get guest speakers from the likes of the IAG and more broadly to come and speak to you about relevant topics, issues that they're facing and their supply chain opportunities too. So there's sort of additional opportunities for engagement through those as a sort of extracurricular item to the programme.
Okay. Thanks, Johnny, and thanks for the question, Paul. I think we have time for one more question, and apologies if we haven't got to your question yet, but as I say, we'll try to come back to you with any particular answers if we don't get to it. There's one here from Richard that says, note the requirement for 10 employees. Can that include contractors and part-time resources, or must it be permanent employees? Johnny.
So the 10 employees requirements there, Richard, principally because the principles specifically on the business excellence side of the programme are very difficult, or more difficult and challenging to apply to smaller organisations and newer enterprises. It's not to say it can't be done, because it has been in the past, but it does require a real determination and a dedication from the participant organisation to be successful. In that case. To answer your question though, yes, contractors, part-time resources can be included as well as permanent employees. I believe the EOI form asks for direct and indirect employees. So direct would be payroll, and indirect can be contractors and resources that you bring in from time to time.
Perfect. Thanks very much. So folks, thank you so much for your participation, for your questions, and for joining us today. We have now come to the end of today's session. We will make the recording of today's session available on our website shortly, as well as the slides which we presented, which will allow you to click through. If we haven't got to your question, I can only apologise, but we will try to respond to you in person. And all that's left for me to say is thank you to Johnny for his presentation and for helping to answer the questions. And we look forward to receiving your applications to the Fit For National Programme very soon. So thank you, everyone, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Lynn. Thanks all.
Thank you.